The singularity cannon was screaming. Commander Lyra Vessa could feel it through the bulkhead walls, like a god whispering doom into her bones. The Nirolith's fang, her battleship and home for the last 12 cycles, groaned under the assault. Titanium alloy decks warped and twisted. Supercooled plasma burst through cracked conduits, igniting fires across the command chamber. The bridge was a war zone, red strobe lighting pulsing over the shattered bodies of her crew. Sparks fell like dying stars around her. Her left arm was limp, crushed beneath a slab of fractured hull plating. Her right hand still gripped her sidearm. Though her visor told her the weapon's energy cell was dry, she stared across the bridge at the viewport, once a magnificent wall of translucent neodymium glass, now spiderwebbed with fractures, threatening to implode. Through the cracks the enemy loomed, a Xenthari dreadnought, twice the mass of a city, its obsidian hull glowing with veins of violet energy. At its core, the singularity cannon charged, a gravitational weapon capable of turning matter into quantum mist. Her HUD stuttered, static crawling across the screen embedded in her corneal implants. Vital signs were plummeting. The ambient temperature was rising, 1700 Fahrenheit and climbing. Even the ship's AI, Cyrus, had gone silent after its central core collapsed into itself. No more calculations, no more outcomes. Just the end. She clenched her jaw. The Xenthari had come to wipe out the last outpost of the Sari Dominion. No quarter, no survivors. It wasn't just a military purge, it was a massacre. And Lyra, the commander who had once outwitted the Atraxian siege of Virelian Prime and led the liberation fleet across the Triangulum Divide, would now die a forgotten death. She closed her eyes. Imagine being a warrior forged in the crucible of stardust and blood, knowing every battle could be your last, and this one was. Her body failed her, her ship failed her. Even the stars above her, once allies in navigation and hope, now bore silent witness to her defeat. The singularity cannon let out its final crescendo, and then silence, not the annihilating roar she expected. No crushing descent into non-existence. Instead, a sudden, jarring snap, like reality being pulled backward, rewound for a heartbeat. A wave of motion. Gravity shifted. Time blurred. And Lyra gasped as air returned to her lungs in a single brutal rush. She opened her eyes. Light, soft, warm, gold-toned light. Not the furious blaze of plasma or the cold emptiness of vacuum. Her face was pressed against something solid. Fabric. Skin? Strong arms held her, trembling slightly as if their owner had only just finished wrestling fate itself. A voice, male, human. Hey, stay with me. You're not gone yet, she blinked. His face hovered above hers. Young but weathered, scars beneath one eye, a streak of white through dark hair. The kind of man forged by war, but not yet broken by it. His suit was patched together from old Terran Republic tech, but upgraded with alien alloys she couldn't immediately identify. He smelled of sweat and ozone. He pressed a stabilization patch against her ribs. The pain dulled. Nanites surged into her bloodstream like 1,000 microscopic medics, stitching and sealing ruptured organs. Her breathing steadied. Her eyes flicked. To the corridor behind him. Smoke still coiled along the ceiling, but it was intact. Emergency lights flickered in a pattern she recognized. Terran rescue code. How did he even get on board? How had he survived the cannon? How? She croaked, voice raw as sand across metal. No time, he said, shifting her weight into his arms. If that dreadnought powers back up, we're both vapor. I've got a window. 90 seconds, max. She should have resisted. Protocol dictated surrender or detonation. The Sari did not accept rescue from unknowns, especially not Terrans. But her limbs wouldn't move. Her mind couldn't formulate strategy. And her heart beat. That alone felt like betrayal, as he lifted her effortlessly and moved down the corridor. Lyra's head rested against his shoulder. For the first time since she entered the war academies of Urkavalis as a child, she let herself feel something other than duty. She'd prepared her whole life to meet death with eyes open. Instead, she closed them again, this time not in surrender, but in wonder. Who was he? Why had he risked himself to save her, a Sari warlord sworn enemy of the human colonies? She didn't know it yet, but this moment would alter the fate of two civilizations, because death did not come for Commander Lyra Vessa. Love did. And love, as every ancient chronicle failed to warn, is a far more dangerous force than war. The descent through the ship's belly was a gauntlet of collapsing decks and flashing emergency systems, each corridor lit in eerie pulses of dying systems and automated warnings. The Terran carried her like she weighed nothing, but every turn of his head, every tightening of his grip revealed tension. This wasn't routine. This was desperation. Lyra's vision swam in and out, but she forced herself to stay semi-conscious. She wasn't just a rescued soldier. She was still a commander. She needed answers. Who was this human? How had he bypassed the Xenthari fire grid? Her last visual scan had confirmed no escape pods launched, no boarding vessels incoming. The Fang had been sealed, hadn't it? They passed a shattered viewport and Lyra's breath caught. Outside, where once floated the monstrous bulk of the Xenthari dreadnought, there was now only empty blackness, scattered wreckage tumbling in slow, glittering spirals. A sphere of distorted light shimmered faintly beyond, like a bruise on the fabric of space itself, a singularity, still active, collapsing slowly. Her rescuer noticed her gaze. That's what bought us time. The cannon misfired. Someone in engineering triggered a feedback loop, probably your AI. Overloaded the Xenthari weapon before it could breach containment. He didn't speak it like a victory. He spoke it like a eulogy. She realized the Fang didn't survive. It sacrificed itself. The ship hadn't failed her. It had saved her. And this man, this stranger, had pulled her from the wreckage with no allegiance, no order, and no reason to risk his life. They slipped into a pressure lock chamber, doors, half-sealed and still sparking from internal damage. He keyed a bypass with a neural jack embedded in his wrist, an old Terran design, outdated but versatile. The interface crackled and gave way, and the doors stuttered open to reveal a small, cramped shuttle bay. It wasn't military. The vessel he dragged her toward was patched and mismatched, clearly scavenged from multiple ship classes. The engine coils pulsed with an unusual signature. She squinted through the pane. Was that Ethereum circuitry? You're flying a hybrid ship, she muttered. He glanced back with a surprised grin. You're not supposed to be awake enough to notice that. Built from Terran, Sari, and Ndari tech? His grin faded slightly. Don't ask how I got it. Just be glad it runs. That wasn't just rare, it was impossible. No one combined tech from those three civilizations. Too unstable, too politically dangerous. You could be executed for even attempting it, let alone flying such a vessel through contested space. He set her gently into the co-pilot's seat, carefully, attaching a stabilizer cuff to her wrist that synced with the onboard medframe. The ship's systems responded to his neural touch, and Lyra felt a hum of energy ripple through the hull. She closed her eyes, not from pain this time, but from realization. This man wasn't a soldier. He was a ghost, and ghosts didn't survive. Long in a galaxy ruled by empires and ancient codes, the ship roared to life, and the bay doors opened to vacuum. A soft blue shimmer coated the hull, the field flux barrier activating. As they shot out into the vast dark, Lyra finally forced herself to speak past the metallic taste in her mouth. You knew I was on board, didn't you? He hesitated. That was enough of an answer. Why? She asked, her voice steadier now. Why save me? The stars stretched around them as the ship leapt into FTL, and the world outside became a smear of fire and memory. The man looked at her, jaw tight, the weight of something ancient behind his eyes. Because, he said quietly, you saved my sister, on Theros Station. You don't remember. It was 12 cycles ago. She was a child hiding under a fuel rig. You carried her to a dropship while the battle raged. I was 10, watching through a cracked bulkhead. I never forgot. Lyra's mind reeled. Theros. A name buried deep beneath years of blood and duty. She had saved a girl once, ignored orders to hold the line to help a terrified child crawl through wreckage and fire. Her commanding officer had nearly court-martialed her for it, but the memory had faded. She had buried it under so many others. "I've been looking for you for years," he continued. "Didn't expect to find you dying on a Xenthari kill list." The cockpit fell silent, save for the low hum of their travel through folded space. Her hand twitched toward her sidearm on instinct, but it wasn't there. And even if it was, she wouldn't have used it. Not after this. This man, this outlaw, this hybrid pilot, had risked everything on a chance. To repay a debt no one else remembered. She looked out the window at the stars bleeding past. Somewhere behind them the war still burned. The Dominion would mark her as missing. The Xenthari would report her dead. But she was alive, off the grid, in a ship that shouldn't exist with a man she didn't yet understand. For the first time in her life, Commander Lyra Vessa had no orders, no map, no mission. Except one, to find out why she was meant to survive, and what that survival was going to cost the galaxy. The stars around them twisted into an eerie blue smear as the hybrid vessel navigated the edges of folded space. Commander Lyra Vessa tried to focus on the fleeting constellations, but her mind kept returning to the face of the human who had saved her, Aidan Marlowe, the boy who had once watched his sister be carried to safety by a stranger, now the man who had pulled her from the jaws of oblivion. In the quiet hum of the ship, Lyra's thoughts drifted like the fractured shards of her past. She had served in the heart of the war, the Dominion's final push to expand through the Cyrax fringe. She was a symbol, a weapon, a leader whose every decision affected the fates of entire systems. But here, in this ship, with Aidan Marlowe at the helm, she was no longer Commander Lyra Vessa, Supreme Officer of the Sari Dominion. She was just a survivor, a relic of a war she had no place in anymore. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice low. Aidan's eyes flicked toward her, then back to the helm. He hadn't spoken much since they left the wreckage of the Fang, only occasionally glancing at the diagnostics or adjusting their course. But there was something in the way he navigated the ship, precise, almost mechanical, but with an undercurrent of care that told Lyra everything she needed to know. He wasn't just a rogue smuggler or mercenary. He was a man on a mission, and that mission had something to do with her. "You'll see," he replied simply, his voice steady. She narrowed her eyes. His cryptic answers had become frustrating, but she sensed there was something deeper at play. She wasn't the only one who had risked everything to get here. He had too. He knew the stakes. The ship leapt through the rift between star systems, its FTL drive sending them careening through a trail of swirling light. They passed nebulae that shimmered in every conceivable shade of blue and purple, twisting like the remnants of forgotten gods. Lyra's gaze lingered on the view for a moment longer than she intended, letting the beauty of the cosmos seep into her bones. It was a rare sight, one she hadn't had time to appreciate in years. Aidan spoke again, breaking the silence. "We're heading to the outer rings, specifically to a station called Virel. It's a hub for refugees." He hesitated, as if the word didn't sit right on his tongue. Not just any refugees, people who've seen too much of the war, people who want to disappear. Lyra didn't need to ask why. She had seen the same desperation in the eyes of countless civilians during her campaigns, the same look of hunted animals who just wanted to survive. But something told her this station wasn't going to be as simple as it seemed. She wasn't sure if she trusted Aidan's words just yet, and even if she did, she wasn't sure she wanted to know what kind of people hid in the shadows of the outer rings. "Are we running from something?" she asked, her tone sharp. He didn't answer at first, but the muscles in his jaw tightened, and for a brief second, Lyra saw something flicker behind his eyes, a shadow of regret, or perhaps fear. "Not running," he said finally, his voice low. "I'm trying to stop something." Lyra studied him, the weight of his words sinking into her chest. There it was, the reason why she was here. The reason why the stars were pulling her into the unknown, into the orbit of this man. He wasn't just saving her for some debt. He was pulling her into a larger conflict, one that involved far more than just surviving another day. "What? Are we stopping?" she asked, leaning forward in her seat, the weight of her Sari training returning to her. She wasn't just a passive observer. She needed to know. His fingers danced over the control panel, tapping out a series of coded sequences. A low hum reverberated through the ship. A war within a war, he muttered, almost to himself. A faction of the Xenthari is planning something. Something that could fracture the galaxy beyond repair. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Lyra felt the air around her grow heavier as she processed what he said. The Xenthari were already brutal conquerors. They had torn through the Sari dominion like a storm, leaving nothing but ashes in their wake. But what could be worse than that? She leaned in. What do they want? Aiden's gaze hardened. Something the galaxy can't afford them to have. He glanced at the screen. The ship's trajectory shifted slightly, heading toward a distant system marked only by a small red dot. The stars began to distort again as the FTL field flickered. The Xenthari are in possession of something, he continued, his voice tight. Something ancient. A relic of the First Empire, an artifact powerful enough to twist the very fabric of space itself, the celestial key. Lyra's blood ran cold. She had heard whispers of such things, ancient artifacts of impossible power, relics from the age of the First Empire, before the great galaxy-spanning wars that had shaped civilizations. The celestial key was a legend, a myth perhaps. But if it was true, why do you think they have it? Lyra asked, her mind racing through possibilities. I don't think, Aiden replied, voice grim. I know. He paused. I was there. When they found it, my sister and I, we were part of the team sent to secure it. He exhaled sharply, like the weight of his memories was suffocating him. I failed. We both did. Lyra's instincts kicked in. She wasn't just dealing with a man who was seeking redemption. She was dealing with someone who had first-hand knowledge of a weapon capable of destroying not just empires, but entire realities. And now, she pressed, what do we do about it? Aiden's eyes met hers, his gaze burning with resolve. Now, he said slowly, we stop the Xenthari from unleashing it on the galaxy, or everything we know will be lost forever. The ship's engine thrummed steadily as it approached. The destination, a small remote star system at the edge of the galaxy's outer rim. Hayden Marlowe sat at the helm, his focus unyielding as the stars swirled around them. Lyra, now more stable thanks to the healing agents in her system, stood at the observation window, her fingers tapping against the hull as the vast nothingness stretched ahead. It was as if the galaxy itself had forgotten this place, silent, desolate, untouched by the war raging just a few sectors away. Varel Station loomed into view, a tangled web of half-built structures, floating modules, and disconnected platforms. It looked like an abandoned relic, cobbled together by the desperate and the forgotten. But Lyra knew better than to trust appearances. This station, hidden in the quiet folds of space, was anything but harmless. Aiden's voice cut through the silence. We'll dock in 15 minutes. You should rest. I don't need rest, Lyra replied, her eyes never leaving the station. Her instincts as a commander, honed through years of battle, were starting to wake again. I need answers. Where are we meeting the others? There are no others. Just us. His voice was distant, tinged with an edge of something more. Pain, perhaps, or regret. Her brow furrowed. What do you mean? You can't stop the Xenthari alone? You think I'll just stand by while you take on an empire? Aiden shot her a glance, his gaze hardening as he adjusted the ship's trajectory. You don't get it. We're not stopping the Xenthari Empire, Lyra. We're stopping what's coming after them. She turned to him now, fully awake, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The weight of his words hit her all at once. What do you mean? He didn't answer immediately, instead running his hand through his hair as if fighting against the rising tide of emotions. Then, in a low voice, he said, The celestial key isn't just a weapon, it's a doorway. Lyra's pulse quickened. A doorway, she repeated. To where? He looked at her, his eyes darkened with the burden of knowledge. To a dimension outside of this one, a place where time doesn't follow the same rules, where reality is malleable. The Xenthari, they don't even know the full extent of what they've uncovered. Lyra's mind raced. the pieces falling into place. The First Empire had known things about space, time, and the very fabric of reality itself, that no civilization had dared to understand. The Celestial Key was rumored to be the last of those artifacts, a device capable of bending space-time, unlocking gateways to untold powers. She felt a cold chill run through her veins. You're saying the Xenthari are going to open a door to another dimension and... What? Invade this one with an army of... What? Demons? Spirits? Aiden shook. His head, his expression grim. Not demons, something worse. He turned back to the controls, his fingers moving with practiced precision. Something ancient. The Xenthari aren't ready for it. They'll be consumed. But if they open that doorway, everything, everyone, will be pulled in. Lyra didn't need to ask what he meant. She understood the stakes. If the Xenthari succeeded in unlocking the Celestial Key, if they opened that rift and unleashed whatever waited beyond, the galaxy would collapse into chaos. Everything they had fought for, everything she had lived for, would be lost. Entire civilizations would be wiped from existence. It would be the end of all things. As they approached the docking port, the station flickered, lights dimming as the ship's proximity sensors scanned. Aiden slowed the vessel's descent. "They'll be waiting for us," he said. Lyra glanced at him, her mind still reeling. She had fought in wars, battled the most powerful fleets in the galaxy, but this was something different. This was a fight for the very fabric of existence. She would be facing an enemy she didn't even fully understand, and the odds were stacked higher than anything she had ever encountered. A thought stirred deep within her. Who are they? Aiden's lips curled into a tight, wary smile. You'll see soon enough. The ship docked with a soft thud, the magnetic clamps locking into place. As the airlock hissed open, a wave of cold, recycled air hit Lyra's face. She stepped out first, her boots clicking on the metal floor as she moved into the station's dimly lit corridors. Aiden followed close behind, his every movement deliberate, calculating. They passed through the station's narrow halls, the walls lined with faded holograms and worn-out panels. This place wasn't built for comfort, it was built for survival. Lyra could feel the weight of every step they took, each echo reverberating, with the desperation of those who had sought refuge here. At the heart of the station was a chamber, its doors heavy with ancient symbols that Lyra couldn't decipher. Aiden keyed in a sequence of numbers, and the doors slid open. Inside, a group of individuals stood waiting. Some were human, like Aiden, others were Xenthari, and even a few beings Lyra didn't recognize, alien species whose features were a mix of organic and synthetic. They were an unlikely group, united by a single cause: to stop the Xenthari and to prevent the destruction of the galaxy. Among them stood a woman whose presence immediately commanded attention. She was tall, with angular features, her eyes a shade of green so bright it seemed unnatural. She wore a combination of battle armor and flowing robes, a hybrid of cultures. Lyra instinctively knew she was someone important. "This is Kira," Aiden said, his voice lower than before. "She's the one who knows how to stop the rift." Lyra studied Kira closely, sensing the strength within her. There was a quiet power about her, as though she was carrying the weight of the universe on her shoulders. Kira nodded in acknowledgement, her gaze steady and piercing. "We've been waiting for you, Commander Vessa." Lyra raised an eyebrow. "Oh, you've been waiting for me?" Kira's lips curved into a knowing smile. "You're the key to stopping this. Your survival was never an accident." Lyra felt the ground shift beneath her feet. She had come here thinking she was just a soldier in a losing battle. But now, as she stood before Kira and the others, she realized that her role in this war was far greater than she could have imagined. The stakes had changed. She wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. She was fighting for the future of the entire galaxy. And with the Celestial Key in play, nothing would ever be the same again. The future was uncertain. The galaxy was on the brink of annihilation. But for the first time since she was a child in the war academies of It was hope, and with it, the resolve to face whatever came next. Aidan stepped forward, his eyes locked on Lyra's. "You ready to end this?" Lyra's gaze hardened, her fists clenched. "I was born ready." And so the final battle began. Thank you for joining us. Please make sure to like, share, and comment on what you think will happen next. What would you do if the fate of the galaxy rested in your hands?